Yo, how you going, everybody? I'm Jack Rowland, and welcome to Into Deep. Boy, it's December already. That is over a year of podcasting. So thank you all so much for joining me on this fun little experiment. I'm having a lot of fun. Today I am joined by the one and only Pete Holmes. How exciting is that? Pete is a phenomenal stand-up comedian, writer, actor, producer, and podcaster. His podcast, You Made It Weird, has been on my frequent podcast rotation for years now and is always such an uplifting, positive injection into my day. His show, Crashing, which is on HBO, is hilarious, awkward, and quite profound, and I can't recommend it enough. It outlines Pete's journey into stand-up comedy and his autobiographical story into self-discovery. Season 2 in particular, I saw it as a real love letter to struggling artists. More specifically comedians, because that's what it's about, but artists all round. Great show, get onto it. He's done so much more than that, too much to list here. But one thing I love about Pete is he is constantly exploring the deeper spiritual lessons in life, absorbing wisdom and delivering it back in a light, humorous, and easily digestible way. All right, let's dive into this chat with Pete Holmes. Hari Rama.
Is there a point to all this?
I think we're getting in too deep.
You don't apply. Bad luck.
Oh, I have one speed, I have one gear. Go, 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 go.
I'll tell you when we're getting in too deep,
Woo! Pete, how are you, buddy?
Future is upon us.
How you going?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm so good. Thanks, mate, so much for coming on. This is doing absolutely nothing for your career, so I really appreciate you.
I actually think it moves it a click back.
Yeah.
Completely kidding. No, I'm so happy to do it. Are you kidding? I'm sorry. You know, it's funny. I was worried that you were going to think that I was like Hollywooding you.
Oh, no.
Past couple times you tried to organize it, I was just like, I'm just bummed. Like I just don't feel like talking.
I kind
not
of
just
assumed,
you, obviously, but I was like, I gotta unplug, and I don't know. I don't know what I needed, but I'm sort of lifting out of it. So
Good.
I'm happy to talk now.
Well, it's so, well, thank you. I really appreciate it. But I mean, I kind of assumed that because, well, this year I've kind of started the old pod, and it's a pretty weird year because no one wants to talk. No one's feeling great. No one's feeling creative. So it's it's kind of weird. But at the same time, I'm like defiantly plowing on because it's the only thing that's keeping me from getting real sad.
Yeah, no, I hear that. Well, you know, I do my own.
Yeah.
And one of the great things about it, and I hope you find this too, is that it's something else on the books. You know what I mean? Like you have a conversation with another human being on the books. And as you know, as a visual artist yourself and whatever it is I'm up to, it's nice to have time set aside just to connect to a person.
Yeah.
Because I think other people in other types of jobs is what I mean, is like they probably have a lot of meetings and stuff, but I don't. So it's nice. And even when I don't feel like doing it, when I have to do it, sometimes that's how I discover it's what I really needed. But if it was just like, oh, when do you feel like doing this, which is what it was with you, I was like, I'll let you know. It was really, really hard to find the will to like, I don't know. How long has it been? It's been like 8 months. I feel like I was really great for 8 months.
Yeah.
And then I started to feel like I think like most people feel, which is just good news. That just means I avoided it for so long. But now I'm starting to really understand like, oh, wow, every day is sort of the same. And like, wow, I really do get a lot of value out of seeing other people. I know that sounds crazy, but my job involves seeing other people. I don't just mean audiences. I mean, going to a comedy club and running into literally 15 people that I've known for 20 years. So it's like having a regular bar, but it's not a bar, it's clubs and they're all over the place. So I don't have that. So I'm really missing it. I'm specifically missing where we met.
I
like
know.
that exact environment, right?
So for the audience, we met at Ramdas Retreat in Maui, Hawaii, which is just literally paradise. I was actually scheduled to go this year, which would have been the first one after Rami D, as you put it, passed, left his body, as he would put it.
Yeah.
But and yeah, I got a refund, and here's the great news. Because the Australian dollar was doing so bad, I got $700 more back on my refund. So
Whoa,
went for spiritual enlightenment, got a financial gain. So
oh, that's awesome. I love
got to
that.
take our wins where we can.
Yeah, that's awesome. That feels really great. But that specifically, that environment, being with people from around the world, there are a lot of Aussies that go, and you and Sam were our, became real family friends, and but like that feeling of going to lunch and just knowing whoever you sat with.
Yeah.
I'm very cult sensitive. I've been watching all these cult documentaries, so I have to tell people that it's not a cult. It's more like sitting with like an old hippie that knew Ram Dass in like 1975, and they're just going to have great stories about going to India or something like that. Nobody ever asked for. In fact, from what you're saying, they actually give you money, so there's no money or sex exchange, which is always the downfall of any cult.
Yep. Have you thought about it? I mean, when you first went to the retreat, was the one that we met, was that the first time you'd ever been?
That's a great question.
What
I think it maybe was. Was that the year? There was a year that we watched my HBO special in my hotel room.
Yeah.
I think that was our second.
Oh, that was
year.
the second one. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that was our second one.
Yeah. Well, did you ever get a sense that it was a bit of a cult?
I was more worried that it was a church. I wasn't.
Right.
I wasn't worried it was a cult because cults want, they want you to like usually dress the same, or there's some sort of, like there's a bridge that you have to climb up. Like, oh, you're a friend of Ram Dass, but you're not a devotee. Like, there's none of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was more concerned that Val and I had just sort of swapped vocabulary, where she and I grew up singing to Jesus, and I still love Jesus, but like we were singing those songs, and now we're singing to Ram, which is just their word for God, and Hanuman, which is basically the son of God. It's the servant of God, which is basically Jesus. But now we're singing in Sanskrit. So I'm like, we got that very familiar sort of douche chill feeling where we were like, oh no, how did we end up back here? We left the church, we did all this rebelling, we did all this learning, and then we're still in a room with smiley people singing to God.
Yeah.
So, the more things change, they just stay the same. But it was very different. I didn't have cult concern. Although I think if I'm looking back, of course you're a little bit. Did you? You're sort of like...
Well, when I went, I didn't know... I had no idea what age group it was going to be. I didn't know whether it was like, I went in completely blind. I mean, I'd been into Ram Dass for years and years before that. And then I think I was just listening to Duncan Trussell talk about, well, he had Ram Dass on his podcast years ago.
He did?
And yeah, like ages ago. And I saw that he was talking about these retreats, and I'd thought about it for a while. So I just booked a ticket, went. And I was on the bus, and I'm like, am I going to be amongst, 170-year-olds all dressed in white? Or is there going to be some cool, young people who are like, is the whole LSD thing still floating in the air? Or is it or is it church? Is it a cult? I had no idea. So, I mean, you can only imagine how thrilled I was to meet like you guys and Sam and just all the beautiful, I mean, what a great quality of human attends those things. Just, I entered a new zone, like I was more present than I've ever been, and I could talk to anyone. I just had I had no need to be like, this guy's a little boring. How the fuck do I get out of this conversation? That was gone. That was all just gone.
Right.
So
yeah, that's what I miss. That, like knowing you could talk to anybody and it was going to be okay. Like
yeah,
it was going to be fine.
yeah.
Boy, I miss that. I hate that bus ride. Actually, I still don't like that bus ride because you get to the airport and there's like an hour and a half drive to where the resort is. Or resort is generous. It's like a cluster of hotel rooms, and I still don't love because that feels so churchy to me.
Mm.
Being with like excited, this is a generalization, but excited white women. It's sort of like, I don't know, whatever they're doing, I can't handle it. It just, and it doesn't matter what they're doing. It's completely my thing. It's my projection. But like growing up, it was always the white girls that were so into church and like so excited for the retreat. And so I just revert to like junior high Pete. And I put my headphones on. But that's like sort of how we found each other, I think, was we were the people that were like, I don't want to go to every talk. And that's not what this is about for me. And I love Krishna Das, and boy, I wouldn't skip a kirtan now. But when there's a kirtan every night, maybe would skip one or maybe would only go for part of one. And that was sort of how we found, not the fringe. We're not the bad boys. We're not like, we all paid a lot of money to go there. It's not like we don't want to be there. But like, that's how I sort of remember.
Yeah, we wagged a few classes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And or had late dinners that just bled into kirtan, which like, I don't like fervor. Like fervor makes me uncomfortable. If it's like, I got to get there and I got to get in the front, it sort of freaks me out. But that's as I'm saying that, that's a privileged position. That's somebody that's like, I saw this person last year or whatever it might be.
Yeah. Yep.
As I say it, I'm like, this is dumb. Because especially now, I'm craving it. I would love to be on that bus, and I wouldn't have a problem with whatever whoever was on the bus was doing. It would just be so fun to be together. But it really did feel a little bit like heaven on earth. That's not really because of the curriculum or how it's run or even necessarily the talks. It's just a group of people with a similar intention getting together.
It's really something beautiful. Hey, it's I guess I secretly wanted to join a cult all these years, and I found it. I guess that's my obsession with cults, but actually turns out I really wanted to join one.
Well, the honeymoon phase of cults is so great. Val and I just watched The Vow.
The what?
It's called The Vow, VOW.
The Vow.
It's on HBO, HBO Max or whatever. And there's another one on Stars. I don't know. But anyway, my point is it's so good it got 2 documentary series about it. And by good, I mean it's bad. It's awful.
Yeah.
It's a rough watch at parts, but very interesting. And whenever I watch something about any cult, and I do love watching stuff about cults, I always say this cult, which I understand is a cult, did help this guy with his Tourette's and did get this guy sober, and did this, and this. And there's just certain unmistakable results that you could see. I don't want to put down any group, but like people have their problems with Scientology, obviously, right? It goes a lot of weird directions, it seems. But at the beginning, there seems to be some value in like the early stuff, which, by the way, used to be really popular with hippies. I'm talking about Dianetics. Yeah. Then it sort of built on itself, and that's where people sort of sometimes have issues. But I'm always like, why doesn't somebody just take the stuff that's working, have elections? I mean, like every 4 years, you can't have someone be in power for more than 4 years, and no sex, meaning no like couple swapping, no male agenda, polyamory sort of undercurrent behind everything, where it's like, we're here, and isn't it cool that we're all just consciousness, but you really just want to get your dick wet? Like, get that out of here. Take out like buying it. Like, you can't have $6,000 courses, and just have. I wonder if there are communities like that are just like, we take these practices that work from this, and this, and the rest of the time we're just in our houses. I don't know.
Yeah. Scientology is a funny one because at the beginning, I actually went and visited the Scientology Center when I was staying with you guys in LA. I just wanted to see what it was like. and I asked for like a personality test, and the joke got old pretty quick. They got pretty hostile when they realized I was not buying their books or signing up to their courses. But yeah, that's a
Really?
weird. Yeah,
Awesome.
they did. They got like they tried to convince me that I was depressed. I'm not sure whether I filled out the whole personality test incorrect because it's like strongly disagree, agree, medium. So I think I may have said every time it was like, do you have horrible feelings? I may have accidentally ticked strongly agree instead of strongly disagree because they came out saying, well, you're quite clearly manically depressed, and this is your information telling me, not us telling you. And you're going to need to sign this book, buy this book, and sign up to this course. And I'm just like, no, I don't think so. And yeah, then they kind of really started shaming me, saying, I was going to a comedy gig with you that night, and they're like, well, what are you doing tonight? I'm like, I'm going to go see comedy. And they're like, so you'll spend money to go see a comedy show, but you won't spend money to help yourself. And I just looked at them blaming. I'm like, yeah, that's right. And then they got like really, and then they got really, not very nice energy in the air
no.
there. But I mean, what I was getting at is they start as just self help, all the good bits, like they're a funny one because
That's the backbone of any cult is like, if I can help you with your confidence
Yep.
or your depression or your addiction. This was explained in one of the documentaries. It starts this like, well, if they were right about that, then they're probably right about this. So if there's any doubt in this, they tell you, well, remember we were right about that. So it's sort of like,
right.
I actually liken it to how they make trained child soldiers, all these awful brainwashing things. It's all kind of the same technique. But I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm like, you don't need a group that's studying exactly what you're studying when you're studying it and going through the same steps. In fact, I actually think insisting somebody wake up or enlighten their mind or whatever, or it's weird to say become more enlightened, but you know what I mean? Like move closer to some sort of state of inner liberation. I think it's abuse to insist somebody else do it at your level. Val and I were just talking about that. If I'm like, the world is an illusion, and that's actually something I take a lot of comfort in. But if you're not ready to play with that idea, and again, it's just an idea. It's just words for something you can't talk about. But if I talk to somebody, young or old, it doesn't really matter. And I'm like, your mom's not real, dude. You're not real. Your mom's not real. Christmas isn't real. Money isn't real. Time isn't real. Like that's actually kind of I think it is an abuse.
Yeah.
And especially if you're in a situation where like, that's why I had an affair, but it's not an affair because none of it's real. Like that's what you see cult leaders doing.
Yeah.
So I'm not really, I love the Ram Dass-iness of it. Ram Dass always seemed to be, he had his group and his peoples at different times. But when he tells his stories, it's usually just a man going to the mountains to learn this, then he'd go to the mountains to learn that. Then he'd go to this Buddhist place to learn this, and then he'd spend some time alone. Or then he'd be in LA on a speaking tour. Like it reminds me of a stand-up comedian in that way.
Yeah. That's funny that you've been getting going down a cult rabbit hole because so have I. I just watched the other night. Have you seen Midsummer? That film blew my mind. I mean, I don't know how you are with like the heavy. Like this film's heavy, very disturbing.
It's a newer movie, right?
Yeah, it came out last year, but it's like the cinematography is just amazing. It's a brilliant film, but it definitely I didn't come out of it feeling good. But
Is it about cult?
It's about a cult in Sweden that's kind of based on like a lot of like Nordic ideas and runes. It's fiction. It's totally fiction, but it's I highly recommend it, but don't do it if you want to feel good about anything.
That's how we felt about The Leftovers. There was an HBO series called The Leftovers that has a lot of cult stuff in it. And I don't know if it's because we have a baby now or if it's because reality is so dark. At times. It also has a lot of beauty in it, but it's very dark sort of collectively. That we were watching the show and every night we're like, that was perfect. That was such a great episode of TV. And we were like, I feel a little bit more scared, a little bit less hopeful. So we were just like, fuck it, we're watching Great British Bake Off, or we're just watching like classic movies that we haven't seen. You know, I've never seen The West Wing. I know that's silly, but like in a time of patriotic unrest, it's really nice to watch just like classic suit and tie, executive branch, executive staff, being presidential, being normal.
Yeah.
That was comforting. And then just watching all the great movies that I just missed either growing up or in the past decade or so.
Yeah, I've been doing the same. I did the whole Alien trilogy and Blade Runner and all these old classics, and a lot of horror. I've really been nurturing the dark side of my personality.
Nothing wrong with it, Jack.
No, I love it. It's weird.
Remember when you took LSD and you went scuba diving, or you went?
Oh my God!
I always think of you when I look at that lagoon. By the way, I do want to say that those retreats, there aren't drugs.
No,
it's not like I'm preventing some raid, but like I thought maybe everybody was going to be on drugs. It's really hard to find even weed. I mean, I tried, and it's not just like sure everybody has it.
Yeah,
but you found some, and you went free diving or whatever you call it, scuba diving.
Oh, I just went swimming. I mean, did I? So I'll tell you the whole story. Like, it was so bizarre. I was at that retreat. I'd met you guys. Everything was like, I was feeling really good, really, really elated, but I was having a lot of resistance to moving into the light, I guess. You know, like a lot of things, like, you know, again, singing to gods and stuff. I was always very anti-religion for some reason, and blah blah. And so anyway, I just decided, I had a conversation with myself and just said, this is 5 days out of your life, whatever. Just do the things that make you uncomfortable. There's no harm. If it's not for you, it's not for you. But if you just do it, you'll know. You've given it all. So I just made a little promise to myself: just whatever comes to you, just accept and go with it. And as I'm walking to the the next series of meditations or workshops, a new friend who I met, I won't say his name, but he had a very cosmic name. He just literally pops out of the corner and is like, "Jack, you want some LSD?" And I fuck it, sure. I'm like, he assured me it was really, really weak. It was microdosing, so cool, whatever. Anyway, fast forward an hour, it's not microdosing, it's a total dose of LSD. I'm tripping balls, listening to Ram Dass, shared spiritual wisdom. I start bawling my eyes out. I'm like going deep, and then, you know, it was a lot. So then anyway, after that, I go for it.
Was it like a liquid dose?
It was a little square piece of paper that I put on my tongue.
So it just was a mistake of liquid. Like, he thought he was giving you a little, but it all went to this one piece.
Or he's just a much higher tolerance frequent user. Yeah. I don't know.
Dude, every time I've microdosed something, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm on, I don't mean like super strong, but like,
yeah, I'm tripping.
I can look at LSD and I'll start having a reaction.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how my brain works. It's the same. I order a pizza and I start feeling like I've eaten a pizza. Like, I have a very suggestible system, I guess.
I'll start making coffee and I instantly need to shit.
Yeah, that's right. And you see that with alcohol too. It's actually not that weird of a phenomenon. I think it's just a matter of paying attention. I read this book. It's actually the book that helped me get off alcohol. It's been 3 years now.
Oh, great. I'm on a break too.
Hey, great. Well, this book is called This Naked Mind. I love it as an audio book too. It's by Annie Grace. Anyway, she makes the point in the book. She's like, have you ever noticed when you're at a restaurant and people order their first drink, that's when they start feeling good. So you just realize that there's this sort of conditioning of like, is it the drink, or is it like this weird marketed, manufactured idea that like a glass of, for me, a martini, that means you've done it and you can relax now. And it's just something very interesting to take a look at.
I've gone through the exact same revelation. I read Alan Carr's Easy Way to Quit Drinking.
That's what this book is, an extrapolation on that.
Yeah.
So if Alan Carr is sort of like, get on the trolley bus, like it's a little dated. This is like a 2000 and I want to say 12 or something. It's just a more modern book.
Yeah, yeah. But
So we did the same thing.
That's exactly it. Like when you really start to analyze the feelings or the cravings, whatever you want to call it, and even still after reading that book, I definitely still have this weird voice in my head that's like, on a hot day after you finish work, God, how good would it be to have a cold, ice cold, frosty beer in your hand and just sip away with the lads or whatever, and
Yeah.
and honestly, like you have it and nothing's happening. Like it's just an idea. It's just a pure idea. It's a romantic idea.
It's not even just about not drinking. For me, I do think I needed to stop. My rock bottom is so boring. My rock bottom is not a good story. It's actually Sam was over.
Yeah. Oh,
Sam
great.
was at our house, and I came in, and I used to drink a lot of sake, and I just started pouring myself a glass of sake, and I was like, I don't even remember making the choice. Like it was like scratching your butt or something. You're just like, and I drink. I'm home and I'm going to drink, and I'm going to keep drinking. And so what I'm trying to say is, even if people listening aren't interested in drinking or not drinking, if that's not even a thing for you, what's always an interesting thing to look at is, are you following your dream, or are you following something that was sold to you as a dream? So when you say, especially Australia, Great Britain, there's even better language, like have a pint with the mates. You know what I mean? It's like ingrained. We have a beer with your butts. It just doesn't sound as, but like, it's definitely like separating whatever the thing is. It could be candy, it could be weed, it could be movies, it could be whatever it is. It's always helpful in my experience to just say, like, was I programmed? Like, was I, like, it's just whatever you're doing. It just, even when we went to the Ramdas retreat, wait, was I programmed? Am I being programmed? Like, that's why the things that I'm drawn to are always trying to bring clarity and focus and freedom and spaciousness. So you can be into Ramdas and drink. He even talks about, he's like, if you're going to go out and get ripped, go out and get ripped and be the universe getting ripped, you know?
Yeah.
He doesn't say it exactly that way. So it's not necessarily like a self-help program in that sense, but like what happens the more you become aware of your inner state and start noticing things like, when I make coffee, I have to shit. That's interesting. If you think of a lemon, you salivate. And you know who knows this? The Coca-Cola company knows that we now think Coke makes a movie better. Popcorn makes a movie better. These things can be fun. They can be fun games to play. I don't want to put them down. But when I started like pushing my liver through a cheese grater every night, because you're told that that's what a free person does. And then I think Alan Carr's book is the same. It goes, actually, it's the opposite of liberty. So that's when sorry to go on a tear here.
No.
But when I was pouring the drink and I didn't even remember that I wanted one, or I didn't even want one, it's just what I do. That is the opposite of freedom. I've been programmed. I've been duped. So if anybody's interested in that book, it actually makes it sort of sexy and exciting to stop drinking. You go like, wait, this company spent this much money convincing me that I'll be cool and attractive and engaging if I'm drinking a scotch. And the truth is, dude, now that I'm sober, you're loud, you're spitting on my face, you're ineloquent, you're not remembering what you're saying or doing. Not everybody, but I know I was. I'm already like 3 drinks in most of the time. I don't need to start actually drinking on top of that.
Yeah. Well, I made alcohol such a deep part of my identity for so many years. And look, I'm sure I'll prove myself to be an absolute hypocrite in a few months when I'm having a beer on this podcast at some point. But
I won't think twice about that.
But
I wouldn't buy.
I had a funny, like, weird, I don't know if it was like a vision or just like a scenario that played out in my head that was really weird. It was kind of cosmic. Like, so I had a vision of me, obviously much older. Not a vision, dumb way to put it. But anyway, and I died. I got to the pearly gates, I went to heaven or whatever it was, and the angels or the spirits or the guides were welcoming me. I'm like, Jack, how are you? And you're like, wow, you're here a little early. Why, what got you? I was like, and they all found out it was alcohol. I'm like, you got stuck on something so simple. The alcohol got you. You were meant to have another 30 years. And it was a weird, funny, I don't know, just like a perspective shift of like what the what the spirits take on it might be. It was like we had such high hopes for you.
It's like it's like that's such the cosmic sense of humor, by the way. That is my experience with when it's funny with you. It's almost like kind of darkly funny and brutally honest. And it's just like that. I want to get back to your LSD story. I realize I interrupted it,
no.
but I actually quit drinking the night, the week before my wedding, which was awesome. And which was weird because I remember Val, sort of worrying that I wouldn't have as much fun because like my family's going to be there and it's always a little bit easier to deal with family or, I believed with a couple drinks in you and all that sort of stuff. So, but I think what's interesting is the night before, literally the hormone monster from Big Mouth was what I saw. Again, this is completely sober. This is just me unable to sleep the night before my wedding. Not because of Val and I were all in. We are all in. But like, I was thinking, am I going to drink at my wedding? Because we had a planner and they were buying me my favorite sake and all this stuff. And I just felt really bad. Like I was starving this creature and it was talking to me. And it was just like, come on, one more time. What's the big deal? And the more I ignored him, the angrier he got. Like your Scientology friends, they really wanted me to be like, oh, you'll have drinks playing Red Dead Redemption alone, but you won't have one at your own wedding. All this stuff. So it's interesting how these voices can manifest. But you finish your story. So you're bawling at Ram Dass.
Right. So basically I'm bawling my eyes out. I'm having little spiritual revelations, processing pain, whatever. So I decided to go for a swim in the ocean. It's a little bit before sunset. I'm not sure if you guys were there. Maybe not. But anyway, as I'm swimming,
we saw you right after.
Yeah.
By the way, getting in the ocean in this state is either like the best idea or the worst idea. Like,
I went deep as well. Like
I remember.
So
I remember. I don't want to tip the story, but I remember you being like, "That was not safe. That was not a safe choice."
But as I was swimming, I was talking to someone, having a wonderful conversation, and it was beautiful. The sun was setting, the light was beautiful, and then I noticed Ram Dass is coming out for a swim. And with his carer and all that, and he's got his floaties on, and I just stayed put, and they just kind of drifted over to where I was chatting to this one or two other people, and I was chatting, and they were doing the he'll yell out, "Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy," and then "Oh joy, oh joy, oh joy," and everybody chants it with him, and it was just a big circle around him, and it was very very cult-like, very beautiful, very amazing,
I've done that sober, and that makes you feel like you're tripping.
Yeah.
So you are tripping.
I am secretly tripping. No one knows I'm tripping balls. And then there's a slight current, kind of this kind of drifting us to the side. Nothing to worry about, just a slight current. And his carer, who's kind of swimming with him, she's kind of getting a little tired, and just go, "Are you okay? Do you need a hand?" And then she's like, "Actually, that would be really great." So she just hands me Ram Dass. So I'm all of a sudden I'm swimming with Ram Dass in my arm, paddling back to shore. The sun is setting, like everything's beautiful, golden light.
Oh my God!
Swimming my fucking guru, my spiritual teacher, who I never thought I'd be able to meet, back to shore, and it was one of those weird things. Is this okay? What is happening right now? And from that point on, I was just in a very elated state for the rest of the rest of the retreat. It was quite surreal.
It's so funny, man, because first of all, that story is incredible, and I'm so happy that happened to you. I just remember you freaking out, talking about like seeing a fish go by and it just being like an overwhelming experience. But like in the history, I understand that LSD and these things aren't a part of everybody's journey, but I will say that like what seems to be in everyone's spiritual journey, all of the greats, is some moment. This is what Richard Rohr, R-O-H-R, if anybody's interested, he talked about a moment of awe and surrender. And like that can happen completely sober. I've had incredible, not like incredible on the spectrum of spiritual experiences, but my own standards, like really moments of feeling. I like to say the needle is right on the record. Like the music, only the music that's playing right now exists. Like you're just completely present. And that had nothing to do with drugs. But for me, it was, a moment like that where these chemicals or these plants or whatever they might be have a real sledgehammer ability to take the jack and the peat that was like, this feels a little culty, or this feels a little churchy, or this feels, I don't know, I swore off singing to God. We both had been like, I don't think I want to do that. I'm not really that hot on religion. And I understand that like maybe people listening are like, right, these drugs are intense and they take you out of your rational mind and then you end up joining a group that you shouldn't have joined. I will concede that's definitely possible. I mean, there's definitely nefarious intent for a lot of things. There are con artists that will make you fall in love with them so they can steal your money. So anything, great things can be misused. But for something that is so private, I don't know if this makes sense. Meaning private, meaning it's your reality is happening inside of you. And when you sort of smear the colors that are, you start to see what you're seeing with. I always tell people about psychedelics, it's not what you see, it's that you see that you're seeing. You see that you're seeing something that you're constructing. And that's not metaphysics, that's just science. That's like how we construct reality. Alan Watts talks about everything we have touches, our eyes touch light. It's not that it like yanks it in or somehow, it's like touching it and then it gives the signal to the brain. So everything is being touched in one way or another. And then that image is somehow flipped and corrected and prioritized in our brain. So then psychedelics can show you that the universe really is being built out of you. Like this is what the Buddhists call mind, or what Ram Dass would call awareness. Everything is happening inside of you. Sorry, I know I'm all over the place, but there's one thing that I think great. All the time. Byron Katie, who's another great teacher of mine, her book "Loving What Is a must read. She says something. I'm very sensitive about noise. I don't like hearing like a car alarm or somebody's party or something like that. And she has this line that I think all the time. She goes, "When we're in our right mind, meaning when we're clear and calm and present, everything is the Buddha. Every sound is the Buddha. And the Buddha here is just a place holder for is the miracle or is the mystery." It's like we get so used to the phenomenon of hearing that we actually get to a point where we grade hearing. This is a pleasant sound, this is an unpleasant sound. I prefer, or like what you do with color. I like Jack's orange work more than his green work. But like when we're really a still pond, everything is perceived as the miracle that it is. Of course, our brains prevent us from feeling that way all the time. Our thinking minds do all the time. But what I was going to say about being alone, sometimes on LSD, instead of death being a frightening venture, you realize that it's an adventure that you don't have to go on alone. You get to go on alone. Meaning you're never alone. You are everything. And you get to do this sort of cannonball into, again, Byron Katie says, the darkness, even in the sky, that's not out there, that's you. You are the expanse. And even the darkness that we fear creeping in and blacking us out, that blackness is you. It's not something else. It's not the void is you, and you're going, I know it's a cliche, but you really are going home. So when you start to see LSD is sort of, not always, I have death panic like everybody, but when I'm clear, I can tap into those moments like you dragging Ram Dass in and go, that's sort of like what death is. Any transformation, any moment has this infinite potential because we are infinite potential.
Do you have that's awesome, man. It's so, first of all, it's just so wonderful to have one of these conversations with you, man. I've been feeling very spiritually bankrupt lately.
Yeah.
I'm a spiritual binger. I'm a binger of all sorts. I'll go,
Yeah, me too.
I will get into the Ram Dass world. I am enlightened for a second, and then I'm on my phone and looking up people getting, falling over on YouTube, fail video. It's
Yeah.
But
I want to track it. I'm like, is it seasonal? Like, is there some pattern to it? Because I'm just like you, man, just like you. And then a lot of the time I'm just quoting what enlightened Jack and enlightened Pete knew. And then like I'm running on that. So let's say it's 3 months on and then I have 3 months off. Those 3 months off can be pretty despondent and thin and dark and sometimes sad. Val and I always talk. We're just like, I just hope the day I die is one of the days that I'm in. So you can be like, instead of, oh, fuck. Like,
fuck.
Either way, I feel like the universe will take a fuck. Dude, that's the same as if in 3 months we do this again and you're drinking a beer. That's the universe having that unconditional. By love, I mean it's holding it together either way. It's giving it the space to either die fuck, or die like like pouring a cup of water into the ocean. There's room for all of it.
You say that you might go through waves or something, but nonetheless, you still manage to, with your podcast and your comedy and pretty much everything that you put out, you are such a wonderful, you've got such a wonderful ability to instill all your messages with spiritual teachings and kind of only put out the positive. You know what I mean? Like you might internally, and I feel like this, and it's kind of what I aim to do with my art. It's like the content that I consume, most of it's dark. Most of it's really dark themes, horrific ideas. And often I'll kind of go there secretly in my head or whatever. But creatively, I just want to put out something. There's people that do that well. There's people that do that perfectly. I don't need to add to that. So I want to put out light. I'm not saying that that's what I do, but that's what I aim for. And that's what you do incredibly well. I mean, who else can weave Ram Dass wisdom into your HBO show Crashing, or even just your stand-up? And there's often just little Easter eggs or breadcrumb teachings that are just kind of scattered for the people in the know with the things you put out, and it's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing that you do.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you. But I also just want to encourage you that like I'm the same. Like I just told you, I'm watching cult documentaries. My favorite band is The National, which is very
they're great.
I love them, but I don't know if you'd call it mopey or morose or depressed. There's like, I think people might think I'm going around listening to Blink 182 or something, but like I love Radiohead too. I mean, Radiohead and The National are two of my favorites. And I think one informs the other. It's knowing that it's because we need it. You know what I mean? And that's not desperate. It is vulnerable, but it's not sad or depraved to need it. But like the more I can have those downtimes, or those, let's not even call them downtimes, they're just not the manic positive times, that really informs everything. And it's built into our physiology. Forgive me for again going on a rant, but it's like it's built into how we breathe. There's in and there's out, right? And that seems so obvious, and everybody's always, talked about this, meaning we just tune out when people start talking about it. But it's like we want just in. We just want the in breath, and we don't want the exhale. but the more full and complete and desperate my exhale is, then it comes back. And I couldn't have one without the other. So I lose it. And that's not a flaw in the system. It's the losing it that informs the regaining it. So all of my teachers, Ram Dass included, talk about the sine wave of reality. You can see this in the ocean. You can see this in your breath. You can see this in how we're awake sometimes and we're asleep sometimes. So the whole universe, and day and night, the whole universe is sort of winking at you, going like, it's not just always sunlight. I know it is in Alaska in some parts, but like, this is an ebb and a flow. And as human beings, we just want chocolate chip pancakes while someone, tosses our salad. While a loved one tosses your salad, right? But the truth is, like, I hope this is interesting. I've heard of celebrities that hire companies to kidnap them and torture them. I don't mean like hardcore, but like they beat them up and they make them poop in a bucket in a cell in a basement.
Really?
Yeah.
It's like,
and the whole time, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just said, sounds like something you'd see on Tom Segura's podcast, Your Mum's House. Just
Exactly. He would watch this video. And if I'm the guest, I would be watching it, laughing uncomfortably, not knowing how to reconcile what you're doing.
Sorry,
But
as you were.
No, you're absolutely right. But like, this to me implies that it's a real need to have low points. Meaning, if you're so rich and famous that you can have the chocolate chip pancake analingus fantasy, you don't want it. You don't. It's like, look to any vampire folklore for the I don't want to live forever sort of thing. Like, you secretly have what you want. And the friends that I've had that have had very profound DMT trips and stuff, I've never smoked DMT, but like, they tell me, we want this. To me, that's what the story of Adam and Eve is about. It was sold to me as like Adam and Eve made a mistake and they ate this apple that sent them into duality. But to me, I like to look at it as mankind's hand in choosing to leave infinite perfection, because we actually sort of wanted to play the game of loss and gain, fame and shame, light and dark, in and out, up and down. We wanted it, meaning the one thing wanted it. Meaning, if you were just an amorphous blob of infinite potential, so let's call that God for lack of a better term, and you can, this is Alan Watts. Alan Watts says, you can just have an orgasm that crescendos, meaning it just keeps getting better and better and better and better and better. So literally, Jack, if you could do that, how long would you do it? It's a fun question. Would you do it for a year? Probably at least a year.
Yeah.
100 years? How about 100,000 years? And then Alan Watts says, at some point, you, the infinite consciousness, are going to make a big red button that says on it, something happens.
Right.
I always think of the SimCity games where you can turn off the disasters. You can turn off earthquakes, fires, Godzilla. You can turn it off, but you don't. Because you want, as the mayor of this fictional city, you want to restore the city. You want to have the approval rate drop. You want to have to raise taxes and all these things. That's sort of, it sounds a little cold, but I think that's sort of what's going on here. And again, when I'm clear, I can see that I want to be the guy, and I mean the big I want to be the guy who is the Australian artist struggling with the idea of drinking, struggling with loneliness, struggling with political unrest, a quarantine, a pandemic. It's weird, but if you can step outside of your attachment to like your dreams and your drives and how badly you and I wish we were talking in person in Maui, you can sort of get a glimpse of the pulse and the energy that's going like, we came here to play every game, every game.
The human experience. Yep.
But if you were infinite, which either we can agree that like God is infinite, if you want to use that word, or at least the expanding universe appears to be infinite, never ending. If you were that, and this is from Michael Gungor, my friend Michael Gungor wrote this wonderful book called This, which is the best title for a book about spirituality. Not that, this. Let's deal with this. Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about this, because it's all here. It's all in this conversation and in this moment. And he says, if you were infinity, what game wouldn't you play? And that actually brings me back to your vision of, I'm not sure of anything, but I wouldn't be surprised if some people die and they go to a white puffy cloud and St. Peter is there with the book and the golden and the pearly gates. Because if you were infinity, what game wouldn't you play?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I love that.
You want to see what you will do in every situation. It's like Grand Theft Auto. When those games first started coming out, this is a dark example, but like, I wanted to hit someone with a car. That's fucked up. But
I was going to use that as an example. Grand Theft Auto. Yeah. My wife says, "Why do you want to run all these people over?" Because I want the chase. You want the cops to chase you and all that stuff. Obviously, that's dark because unfortunately we live in a world where people are doing that. But we can at least, in our beginner's course, which is where I am, start to understand the idea of wanting to play, wanting to see, did the programmers foresee that I might steal a helicopter and crash it into a waterfall? Did they plan for that? And I think that's sort of what's going on here. It's what science is. What if we take this highly volatile atom and put it with this highly volatile atom? Did the programmer foresee this? Oh, this actually turns lead into gold. Holy shit. Like, they're looking at the pixels of this video game that we call molecules. And even though we are made of those pixels, Mario, with the help of psychedelics, with the help of meditation, with the help of great teachers, with the grace of a guru, Mario can start to sense that someone with a Japanese name made him and put him in this world. Which is why I think it's so funny, when BJ Novak did my podcast, he was like, Elon Musk is doing what human beings have always done. He says we live in a simulation, and the ancient Hebrews made God look like an ancient Hebrew, and Elon Musk is making God, or the unseen force behind all of this, look like a programmer. No the same shit. Thing. That's exactly what it is, isn't it?
That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
I'm a programmer, and you're like, what's really behind this is a bigger, more powerful program.
It's the same.
It's the same, and it's just as valid. We happen to like the old ones, but your guess and my guess, if we're coming from an honest place and a thoughtful place, you're welcome to the long line of human beings that at least got in touch with their idea that they have no idea how they got into the ocean towing Ram Dass with your arm. And I have no idea how I got in this chair talking to somebody literally on the other side of the world on a different day. Or is it the morning there?
It's the morning. Yep.
Yeah. So I know that's a cliche, but it's like, that's a miracle. And so is everything.
It is a miracle. So beautifully put, Pete. That's amazing. So beautifully put. Isn't it funny though how much things seem to line up or just everything seems to align when you feel like you're you could call it synchronicities, I guess. When you feel more dialed in, when you're putting out and receiving more positivity, everything seems to kind of click in place. And it's so frustrating when you're not feeling connected to your spiritual self, to the greater spiritual network, whatever you want to call it. And how do people access? How do people get back? I mean, that's one thing that I'm always going through, and just nothing might be working. But then when I guess a lot of it is what you're putting out. That's a conclusion I get there. If you're putting out, people tend to want to.
I used to say, you ever have a lonely week and you're like, I'm not getting any emails. Like nobody emails me or nobody. It's like if you want emails, write some emails, right? So like if you want serendipities, if you want the universe to wink at you, you're a part of the universe. Start winking at other people. I don't mean literally, but you can. I think that's my neighbor's baby. I'm sorry. Like if somebody
Oh,
else has
yeah.
a baby,
If you got to
that's
go, man,
fine.
go for it.
I don't have to go.
Okay.
Val is here. Yeah, our neighbors have a baby. I'm sorry for that interruption.
No, I was worried it was going to be an earthquake.
Oh my God, no. If that happens, I'll go in the sauna. I have a little freestanding sauna behind me, which is not as fancy as it sounds. You too can get an infrared sauna for, I don't know, less than $1,000, I'm sure.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I recommend it.
Yeah.
I recommend it.
Yeah, that is, yeah, any good
It's
addition to a home.
It's the laziest exercise. You and your wife should get one. You get one that's the size of a phone booth. And if you sit in it for an hour, I think it burns something like 1,000 calories.
No shit.
And you'll feel it. Your heart is jacked. And you're just sitting there watching a movie. So it's literally one of my life hacks.
Yeah.
Because it'll make you feel really good afterwards.
And do you do it every day?
We haven't been, as you know, we haven't been in LA, but I've been looking forward to getting back to it. Because it really is. If in the morning, sorry, but maybe this is helpful to two of you. In the morning, before you eat, take a sauna, take a cold shower, and then eat. It's up there with the more fun like party drugs I've done, which is just like MDMA or whatever. But it feels that sort of like, holy shit, I see infinite potential in all things. It's really fun.
Great.
That's when, if you had emailed me to do your podcast, I would have been like, let's do it right now.
Let's go.
I'm going to fly to Australia right now. I forget what we were talking about. We were talking about, how to get back, right? So you want to first to wink at you, wink at other people. You want emails, write some emails. But then, and I really want to be clear, like you're talking to me at a time when I'm not really feeling it. I can just feel if there is a spacious vastness in front of me, when I'm clear, when I'm with you in Maui, when we're just like, they call it Bhav, the good vibrations of the retreat, or sitting with Ramdas, I feel clear. I just don't feel, my file is empty.
Yeah.
The file that I carry around that says I'm Pete, I'm liberal, I'm white, I'm married, it's all empty. And I'm just nothing. And I'm just a beautiful, after a big sip of Sprite. So how I've been feeling lately is that orb is there. It's always there. It's what we are. But there's just a big piece of styrofoam, square styrofoam, that's been keeping me numb. So when I offer this answer, and it's a big reason why I put positivity into everything I do, all my output, is because I'm talking to myself. I'm trying to, from that place, create stuff that will take me to that place when I'm not in that place. So it's actually sort of, very much so, it's self-serving. So even talking to you about it is helping. It's one of these weird, it's why talk therapy helps. Like for some reason, talking about these ideas helps me embody them. So the answer is like trying to go be vulnerable enough to admit that you're not in control of how you feel, that you don't necessarily like how you feel, but you're going to invite it in for tea. So you're not going to resist it, which of course charges it up with all this energy. Like when I was a kid, I was like, I will not look at the Playboy magazine I stole from the corner store.
Yeah.
And that just made the Playboy magazine the most delicious drug cocktail of shame and sexual joy together, which made it so much more appealing than somebody who just grew up with bohemian parents that were like, hey, you turned 12, I got you a Playboy. Like, who cares? It's almost like how Europeans give their kids wine. Like, I had made it this thing. But I'm trying to just be like, don't resist it. Be the universe feeling blocked. Notice it. try to write it out in sort of like a New England poet sort of way. Know that it won't be forever, even though your brain and your ego keeps telling you the story that it's going to be forever. And I keep thinking of the Ecclesiastes, which the Beatles turned into a song, which is like, there's a time for harvest and there's a time for planting. And right now, it sounds like you and I are just sort of maybe planting with little harvests here and there.
Yeah.
But like, or you're the cold, naked tree, Again, look at nature. Nature has all of the answers, as your work helps us see. Nature has all the answers.
Nature has all the answers. I'll definitely back you up on that one, man.
That's it.
Spend
it has
time in the trees,
my pearly gate fantasy is like, they're like, how did you not get it? Because we left you clues in your own body. Like, look at your body and how your body works and how there's times of health and times of sickness. Like, it's all a give and a take. It's like the most profound secret, and it's right in front of our faces. But like, I'm also, I really just want to stress this. I'm like, later tonight, I'm probably going to smoke weed because I just know that I'm in a place where I'm just sort of waiting. I don't like that. I know the spiritual lesson to give myself to say, like, don't wait. It's here. Don't spread the bad feeling and then say it's a bad day. But I also, I'm a self-love guy and like, and I don't struggle with weed. Weed is not one of those things that like really grabs me in the way that like coffee or booze can grab me.
Yeah, I'm the same.
So like, but I'll do it because I'm like, look, I'm sort of miserable. So like, I'm going to watch Elf with Val and we're going to talk about Christmas and I'm going to do some Christmas shopping for my friends online. Just my vision and my understanding of the universe is love. And I know that's a cliche, but that's why I'm like, Jack, if you're drinking a beer next time we talk, that too, you know what I mean? That too. Jesus has this great line about God where he says, he likens it to the parents. And this means even more to me now that I'm a parent. And he goes, who, if your kid asks you for bread, would you give them a snake? I mean, Jesus was pretty funny. That's a great line. And he says, that's how it is with your heavenly Father, right? He's like, when you ask for bread, you don't get a snake. Of course, we can turn that into prosperity gospel and mean, oh, that means, Jack, you're going to sell a painting for $3 million. But that's a lie. That's the ego hijacking a spiritual concept. What you might need, what might actually be bread, is a period of painter's block where you just don't, that might actually be what you need. And I might actually need to get off my fucking privileged fancy boy comedian lifestyle and just for fuck's sake feel like the rest of us. Can you just join us for a second? I'm glad you have a daughter and I'm glad you don't have to worry about your next meal, but would you get in tune with the psychic frequency because the world is groaning right now? Can you participate in that just a little bit? So last point, Byron Katie has this great line that I also think of all the time where she says, life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. Meaning, when I'm annoyed at my neighbors for having a loud party and I'm trying to put my daughter down, that's happening for me. And I can hear Ram Dass in this too.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
They're very similar. It's the same sort of thing. It's grace. Here is the gift of your own small suffering as a alarm clock, as a reminder that you've gotten lost in the small game and you're trying to control reality instead of flowing with the river. That doesn't mean I won't tell my neighbors to turn the music down, but like,
you do it nicely. You do it presently.
Very kindly, of course. Within reason. I mean, is it Saturday at 7:00? I mean, maybe they have all they're in the right at that point, maybe. But like, the game is about, sorry, I have all these quotes. I got this from a Ram meditation book. So it's not his line. I think it might be Chinese Zen or something. But when you have a task, you have to do something. You have to make a painting, or you have to get to dinner. The task itself is always 1/10 of the task, and 9/10 of the task is not losing your center. And that is something I'm always like, if Leela's in the car and she's crying and I'm driving and I had to pack and I'm sweating and I have to meet Val at home, that's very valuable to me to go like, wait, Pete, you think you need to get to LA quietly? Really, you need to mind the store. You need to keep the temple, not for some afterlife reward, and certainly not to tell anybody about. But with Leela, it's even easier because I need to be a good example. I don't want to be the dad yelling at other cars or hitting the stereo or whatever it might be. But like, not just to be a good example for her, but because your equanimity and your forgiveness of reality and your flowing with reality, to me, seems to be, I don't want to say it's the only game in town, but it is your connection to living spirit, and living spirit is the only game in town.
I love that. I love that so much. Getting there that's just almost peripheral, but that's the task. And being present, being good, being mindful, whatever you want to call it, that is actually the work. I love the idea where if you can be wise enough or in tune enough, where you can see every single challenge or tragedy or disappointment as a lesson for you to grow, then I don't want to use the word. You're on the right path, I guess. You're on the path towards maybe not enlightenment, but you're on a much wiser path. So
yeah, you're in tune with your true self, and your true self is enlightened. Like, you and I are made of enlightenment. We just sort of overlay
just us,
these other things.
Yeah.
And I really don't want to disparage that. Like, for example, I'm in a monogamous marriage. What is that? I could say to Val, this is stupid. It's all a dream. Don't you want to have a dream? Don't I want to have a dream where I'm doing whatever I want? But like, Ram Dass is always pointing us to like, honor the game. This is what he thinks the Bible is talking about when it's like, in the world, but not of the world. Or when Rumi, I think it's Rumi or Kabir, I confuse them. But he's like, I walk through the marketplace, but I'm not a purchaser. Meaning, go get your groceries. You don't have to, not everything has to be this like, this is bullshit. This isn't spirit. Like, all of it can be a sacrifice, meaning let it pass through you and beyond you, including your frustration, including your blind horniness on a bus on a Tuesday afternoon. Instead of resisting it, like the thing I love about Rami D is he's working with what's happening. He's not saying, wouldn't it be great if we were in white starched shirts and khakis, just being polite? He's like, it's not a flaw that you get overwhelmed. It's not a flaw that you get depressed. It's not a flaw that you get angry. He said that to me on one of my retreats. He was like, I love my anger. And I laughed. I have a hard time with anger, meaning I don't like getting angry. It's the opposite. People say that, you think they probably get angry a lot. I mean, like, I have a hard time allowing myself to be angry when that's what is called for. And he's like, I love it. He doesn't think it's growing up Christian, I thought all of these human things were mistakes. What a mistake that I'm so horny. Sex was a big one for me. What a mistake that I'm so greedy it's happening for me. My greed is happening now, just like the earthquake is happening in Sim City, so I can put something better on that open plot of rubble.
I think that's what I love so much about like the kind of Hindu ideas of reincarnation and specifically karma. So all your egos, all your barriers, that's your karma that it's your job to work through, and you're meant to do that over many, many lives. But whether I don't necessarily believe in reincarnation, I don't disbelieve in reincarnation. I have no idea. But I've found that just using those ideas, for me, they get the message across a lot quicker than, for instance, Christian ideas ever did. I always struggled with Christianity because you're talking about Adam and Eve before, and sorry if I don't, nothing, all paths lead to the same direction. They're just different roads. But you're talking about Adam and Eve, and I guess I always struggled with how cryptic everything was. It's not a direct message. Everything's open for interpretation, which is poetry. I've never understood poetry, which is weird because I'm an artist. Like, I don't understand poetry. If someone reads me a poem, they're just weird words. Everything's too cryptic for me to actually get any the beauty out of it, which is quite sad, but that's just how it is for me. So I think that's a lot of the reason I've struggled with, I'll look at it, Adam and Eve, and I'll instantly think, so everyone's incest. Okay, right. That's what I got from that story. It's no wisdom taken in.
Well, the whole universe is incest. And I mean, the whole universe is having sex with itself, basically. Like, everything is masturbation. If you look at it in a certain way, again, that could be wrong, but it sure seems to be attracted to itself. It's eating itself. It's shitting itself out. From that shit grows a plant. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's incest is just the beginning. You know what I mean? Like, meaning there's just one thing thinging itself.
Yeah.
And it's so weird that we have such a hang up, although I understand it because sex is a complicated thing emotionally and physically and all that stuff. But, what I like about reincarnation is that it implies that there's something bigger going on that outlasts a human life. Because what we love, in the West, in the Western world, is things happen for a reason. And what that means is I lose my job because I'm hit by a car on the way to the board meeting, and I'm in a coma, but I wake up and I've lost my fortune and all this stuff. But my nurse and I fall in love, and then I get married. We like that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. It just doesn't leave me personally satisfied. So, because I'm like, it doesn't leave room for I'm crossing the street to see you, and we're long lost brothers, and it's going to be this beautiful YouTubeable moment where we didn't know we were identical twins, but we're meeting for the first time. But I'm hit by a bus. Well, we look at that and we just don't know what to do. When you bring in the idea, which again, I don't know if I literally believe in reincarnation. It's not super important to me. I figure I'll sort of figure it out eventually. But like what I like about it is it brings in a broader playing field, meaning your karma extends different lifetimes. So you have to burn off this karma, just your duties, your actions, to reach the place of zero. It's almost like the fuel in your ego tank, and then that's going to burn off over lifetimes. I just like that it opens it up, because Christians, as I was raised Christian, it was like you're either saved, you either pray a certain prayer in this life, or you go to hell and it's over. And I'm just sort of like, the world that I see is far more creative than that. It's not this bad ticking clock drama that it's sort of been reduced to, of like someone dies tragically, and the Christian church will be like, well, don't worry, the age of accountability is I don't know what it is. I think it's 12 or something. Don't worry, they went to heaven because the age of accountability, we made that up. And that's just very uncreative to me. It's very cookie cutter and cut and dry. So what I like about some of the trippier religions is they're like, oh, it's so much weirder than that. You know what I mean? But I also just want to give you permission. You're younger than I am, and I didn't start liking poetry until pretty recently. And I wonder if this is a clue for you. One is, with Adam and Eve, and Genesis is a book of poetry for sure. Imagine if a poem had been like misused and sort of abused you when you were young. You'd be pretty passionate about redeeming and rewriting that poem. So that's where that interest comes from. And then when it comes to somebody like Mary Oliver, who I love a lot, it's like the reason the prose is broken down, you know, a poem will say like, I was fine. And then the next line will say like, and tired. And it's like, why didn't you just put that on one line? I was fine and tired. It's because you know that state you were in the ocean with Ram Dass, and the state you're in when you can feel your breath being absorbed by the little hairs on the inside of your lungs. Things are slowed down. So when you slow down, the ocean that day was poetry to you because you were awake to it. So poetry is sort of reverse engineering that. It's giving you something slow and specific, very particular, to try and bring you to that place. And when I realized it wasn't just like the ego of the author to be like, guess what? I'm not done with the sentence. It's even the reading of it on the page will sort of hypnotize you. And then, like you with fine art, every consumer of any art at some point needs to give themselves permission that how you feel is how you're supposed to feel because it's how you feel. So the painting behind you, I'm assuming is one of yours.
It is, yep.
I look at that and I feel, honestly, it makes me feel very hopeful. I'm like, I live on this blue
wonderful
planet, the orange sky, everything's all right. Like I'm in this beautiful sunlight. But maybe when you painted it, you were like, this is what loneliness feels like to me.
Or the end of the world, you know. A lot of the ideas are between utopia and barren landscapes, you know. So I like those kind of contrasts. Anyway, I'm just fluffing my own thing right there.
I totally get, because look at the blue barren world, but I'm like, but it's okay. So right now, Jack, I'm in a blue barren world, and looking at your painting is very moving to me. But then I had Ben Gibbard from Death Cab for Cutie on my podcast, and I'm trying to think, there were other musicians that said the exact same thing, which is he'll write a song, and the song was about the Titanic, right? But it's all through like metaphor, and it's poetic. And then people will be like, I love that song you wrote about divorce. And in that moment, he never says it's about the Titanic. He just says, thank you.
Right.
And that was a real click moment for me. I used to go to the museum, trying to figure out how long I was supposed to look at something, or you fall into the trap, which can be an enjoyable experience. It doesn't have to be a trap, of wanting to know the story of the painting or what's happening in the painting, especially in the Renaissance. Oh, this is John the Baptist's head on a platter, and it was commissioned by this person, all that stuff. And now you're like, when you're clear or free, you can get a trip to the museum by looking at a rock, and you can look at a house plant.
Yes.
You can look at the water coming out of your faucet, and you realize, so Ram Dass has this great story about, they had a very fat cat living in their house. It was their cat. And they were like, they put it on a diet. And so they started feeding him less and less food. But the cat kept gaining weight. They were like, this is a miracle cat. I don't know how this cat is doing it, but it's very unhealthy and we need to figure something out. Come to find out that the cat had figured out a way to like crawl under the sink where the bag of cat food was. So at night it was going and finding the sack of cat food and eating its fill. And that is sort of like what I'm talking about, is like the museum can serve you a bowl of cat food, but when you figure out, this is Ram Dass's line, when you figure out where the cat food is stored, which is inside of you, the game's over. Then you don't have to go to a church to feel holy. You don't have to go to a museum to appreciate art. You don't have to read a book to remember to be quiet, because you realize everything that ever has been and ever will be comes from the same spark that is animating your breath right now.
That's so wonderful. I mean, I hate to always harp on about psychedelics, but that's often what I find, something like LSD or mushrooms can really assist with, is all of a sudden you will see the breath of the life of the plants. You will see the rocks as artworks. You'll see everything as absolute perfection. And I guess my whole goal about going to the Ram Dass retreats was, how do I achieve that state without the drugs? How do I get that to that place within myself where I can see the pure, the God in everything, really, the beautiful, the God energy, whatever you want to call it, and see the art in just every single landscape. When you can, that's just kind of been my goal. And I have to say that my experience at the Ram Dass retreats briefly provided that. And despite the LSD story, I'm talking without that stuff, I got there. I proved to myself it's possible.
But you see that this is sort of the arc of our whole conversation, is like, my goal too in getting into Ram Dass was like, I would like to be fascinated and engaged and alive all the time, just not when I'm on drugs. And then the sort of cosmic punchline to that is, I don't, right? And that doesn't mean, it means I didn't do that, but like, your brain, the way your brain works is a system. It's like a bouncer at a club, and there's all this information. And what LSD and mushrooms and these things can do is it slips the bouncer a $50 bill and it says, just take the afternoon off. And this is euphoric. Often afterwards, you're spread a little thin. With certain experiences, you might be depressed, or you might be tired, or you might be whatever, when you come down. And you realize that too isn't a flaw in the system. As fun as it is to go into the kingdom of heaven, or whatever you want to call it, it's not a flaw. The forgetting got me that painting, your painting. The forgetting got me to write a script. The forgetting got us to have this conversation. And I just don't know how much use we are if you and I are just floating around getting an ambrosia enema. There's certainly gurus and mystics that have done that, and they, I'm sure, play a role that I can't even begin to understand. But like, for now, it's okay that we're in the theater and we put on different outfits, and I play the sad guy watching his country struggle. And then, I always say this with all things, not just spiritual things, but like, the rough period is moving away from the target. So the target is that connected feeling. But just like, this is Zen, just like an archer pulls the arrow back on the bow, the arrow in that moment is moving away from the target.
Yeah.
You want to get to the target. And the first thing you do to get to the target is you pull the arrow in the opposite direction. But it's that tension that propels it forward to the next thing. And I think though you and I have to keep going to these retreats and have to keep having these conversations, and I read books that I've already read 6 times and I read them again, it's now the goal is, if you and I are going to be spiritually manic and then maybe a little bit more rooted to our animal, I don't even say that in a bad way, just rooted to the instincts of our bodies or our depressions or whatever it might be, I'm just trying to learn to appreciate both states. And if I'm being honest, I'm trying to have the windows be shorter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That I'm just going like, I know I'm going to be the guy that's like listening to all these lectures and regurgitating them for people. And then I'm going to be smoking weed and watching Elf. Let's learn to enjoy both. And I think the grace is, in my experience, and I can say this, I'm spending more time on the target and less time moving away from it.
Yeah, that's such a healthier way to frame it, because, it's an easy trap to fall into, and of beating yourself up. Like, why aren't I enlightened? Why am I not more positive? And then there's nothing worse than feeling bad about feeling bad. Punishing yourself for feeling bad is just pointless. I mean,
but your ego loves it because you exist. You feel bad, so you are real, right?
Right.
So I'm real. So it sort of gets what it wants. It's a strange device that wants to prove its own identity. And then, you said it, You got it.
Pete, I find at the moment one of my biggest struggles, which I are definitely not alone, but I'm very conscious of it. And I don't, it's a really annoying thing. I like you, am a very people person. I've loved people. That's why I thrived so much on the retreats. I love talking to people, and same with the podcast. I love meeting people. But there's, with the current state of the world, and I'm so sorry what's, going on in the US, man. It's just must be so shit to what, to experience. But like, I find myself like,
we're a new country. Give us time.
yeah. No, but I'm resenting my fellow man sometimes, and I'm contributing to the divisiveness. So I'm aware enough to be like, the Ramdas way would be like, your political affiliations are so irrelevant. I want to connect with the soul. So I understand that on an intellectual level, and I don't do it. I contribute to this divisiveness, and it's a hard trap to. I guess I just constantly just keep trying to catch myself. But how do you go? How do you balance that, or do you experience that?
Well, no, I do experience it, and I don't always balance it. And I don't want to give you and I an excuse, but when you look at the technologies through which we consume the information that makes us upset and makes us more divisive, they're all very binary. Facebook, you like it, or Instagram, you like it. Or so it's turned my country into like, you're either wearing a hat that says like NPR or like the New York Times, or you're wearing a hat that says Make America Great Again. So the ego is sort of having its orgy right now.
That's such a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
It's an ego orgy.
Dude, I mean, I've always been like, I know so many Republicans and I respect them and love them. And I've always enjoyed, I'm talking about like a real motherfucking Republican, like an intelligent, compassionate, whip smart, can beat me in a debate, has thought it through more than I have, Republican. And I salute that. And in a weird way, I'm really looking forward to like a great Republican president.
Yeah, I feel the same. I'm not anti right wing. I'm more left wing, but I'm not anti right wing. I'm just anti Trump.
Right. That's sort of my point. Is like this. That's a different ballgame. And I understand Val and I were talking about like the president is like the dad of the country, and some people are like, that's what a dad looks like. My dad was a blowhard or a bully or whatever you want to say. But like, I have totally succumbed to, if I see a bumper sticker for Trump, I immediately go, well, that's why you're driving so aggressive or whatever it is. But that's what the brain does. The brain wants to do that. The brain wants to go. The other stereotype is maybe they were an Asian American. You go, oh, you're an Asian American. That's why you're driving crazy. So it's not new. We just sort of looked at it this way. But like, and I do it the other way. I see someone with a Biden-Harris sticker and I go, oh, there's one of the good guys. I mean, it might as well, it starts to feel like Star Wars. There's the symbol of the rebellion and there's the Death Star. Yep. And what a fucking shit place to be.
Yeah.
We're all losing with the binary mind, and political campaigns are energized by it. It's sort of like an evil fuel, but it can really be used by either side for political gain. And the reason I don't give up on things like religion and spirituality. So Richard Rohr, again, R-O-H-R. If I'm reading his book, The Naked Now, again, it's a great book. And he talks about non-duality, right? So when we're in what you and I would say the LSD place, Christians might say the kingdom of heaven or nirvana or the garden of Allah, like when you're in that place where everything belongs, that's non-binary thinking. When you're not even prioritizing a rock over a Picasso, you're in that non-binary place. It's not very satisfying to the ego. It's not really like the grooviest thing to talk about. But when you're there, you can see, Richard Rohr calls it, you see panoramic. You're not looking at like this issue and am I yes or no here? Am I yes or no here? Am I yes or no here? And then you get enough yeses and nos and you arrange them into a paper mache thing that looks like you. That's the binary mind. That's the dualistic mind. So the non-dual mind is what spirituality at its more mature levels, to use Richard Rohr's language, is pulling us into that, like, would you stop, as you said, connect as souls, or just connect with fewer ideas that you've attached your ego and your identity to. So therefore you're going to be quicker to call it truth. You're going to be quicker to get angry defending it. You're going to get quicker to vilify the other side. Spirituality, even though it's being used, religion is being used to like amplify and further divide. The point of it was to bring together. Religion is, again, this is Richard Rohr, religio. Ligio is like ligament. It's like a connective thing. So it's to reconnect. We're supposed to be connecting through our shared experience, right?
Yeah.
Which is why we love violence in movies, I think, because the most powerful rich person in the room and a poor person, a not powerful person in a room, become the same thing when someone is shooting at them, because we remember, oh, right, we're in bodies, they live, they die. We all want to be safe. We all want to be warm and fed and loved. So that is my hope, is that we'll sort of start getting back into some of the subtlety that I think will be so full of our gluttonous ego orgy of all us and them, in or out, this or that thinking, that will break and we'll go, okay, is there something else? And hopefully there will be the mystics that say, yes, there is something else. And if not a mystic, maybe just some weird guy at a retreat that goes, hey, Jack, you want some LSD? Because I don't know if you've heard this, but Ram Dass met somebody in India that was like, look, America is a materialistic country. Of course, God came to you as a material. He's like, we weren't over in India doing LSD, but God, the mystery, truth, is chasing you. You're not just chasing it, it's chasing you. It wants to reconnect with itself. So it's like, what's it going to take? Are you going to have an experience at a Tool concert where you merge with Christ and Buddha? Like, sure, we'll take all the help we can get. Or are you going to get it just by being like a really good Catholic? I don't care. We'll take all the help we can get. Are you going to get it from music or a beautiful sexual relationship or silence or art or the thrill of selling real estate in your small town in Wisconsin? Like, whatever it takes, can you get to that place of unity, and can you get enough, mixing metaphors, whiff of the cookies that you come into the fucking kitchen?
Yeah.
Because we're making them for you. The cookies are for you and they're for me. And the cookie is no sweeter to the liberal than it is to the conservative.
Yeah.
The cookie doesn't care where you went to church or the color of your skin. The cookie is what I'm substituting for grace. It will delight you no matter what you think is you, what you've constructed to be yourself.
Pete, you make all this stuff so digestible. You really do. You've got a fantastic, on the cookie thing, very digestible.
Digestive.
Yeah. I want to ask you just kind of one more question before I let you go, buddy. But I want to know how you felt when Ram Dass died, and I know how we're meant to feel. His whole thing when his guru Neem Karoli Baba. Did I say that right? Yeah. I haven't been attending classes.
Sorry, Rob.
When he left his body and everyone was sad, and the kind of answers like, well, before he he died, he said, "Don't be silly. Where could I go?" Meaning, I'm going to merge with the one, and I'll always be within you. And I know that's how we're meant to feel about Ramdas passing. But how did you feel?
That came later. Now, meaning the shit, I'm not going to get to see him again. That came later. So what happened was my friend Noah Hoffield, who plays cello with Krishna Das, is one of those people like you. We've hung out a handful of times, but the love is real. You know what I mean? You're just like, these are good people. These are my people.
Yep.
So he's one of those guys, and he called me to tell me. And my first feeling was a little bit self-serving, I think, now that I'm thinking on it. But I'm like, oh, now Ram Dass is more bioavailable to me. Meaning he was a packet of emergency, those emergency drinks?
Yeah.
Like
a juice box or something? Oh, yeah, yep.
Like just a powdered juice.
Yep.
And he got opened up and he got poured into the world and he got stirred up. So now when I rock my baby to sleep, Val and I alternate, but a lot of nights, not every other night, but so I might put it to bed a bunch is what I'm saying. It happens a lot. Val does it a lot. And that's my time to commune with Ram Dass, because it's a pitch black room. I'm holding Christ. I'm holding life itself, an egoless, boundless joy nugget that is my baby, even though she's quite big now, tall. That's when I'll say, Baba, if you want to come and just be in my body, and I don't even necessarily mean this is happening literally, but I was like, if you want to just hang out inside of me, this is a pretty sweet time. If you really do go like, consciousness isn't personal, awareness isn't personal, then that is a potential. Sidebar, there are people that believe like we can communicate with aliens because they're like, if everything is one consciousness, we should be able to like get a signal to aliens. Anyway, that's a whole other subject. They would say they're having good success. It's really trippy. So in that sort of way, that's my own version. And again, I think of it as a thought experiment, not really like magic. But that's how I felt, as I was like, he's been stirred into the iced tea. He was the sugar at the bottom, and we stirred him up. And when he left his body, I sort of had that feeling of like, I don't have to fly to Maui to see him.
Yeah.
Anymore. And that's how he felt when his guru died. Everybody was sad, but he knew that he didn't mistake the CD for the music. You know what I mean? And then later during the pandemic is when I started to be like, fuck, because he was, and it was fuck. It wasn't boo hoo fuck. It was just sort of like a real, just sort of basic frustration, because a good Ram Dass story for me was I was in Maui and I had done a private retreat, and I actually did one more. I was so glad I did another one right before he passed. And but in between those two, I was in Maui, and I was doing a corporate show, which is not it's not a great feeling. Meaning, if you want to talk about not really feeling connected to spirit, a really good way to do that is to do an event that really hinges on your celebrity, because you're sort of, and I'm grateful for this. Thank you to the people that had me, and I hope to do more because it's good work. But you are just sort of like, they are buying the persona to not just show up and do the show, but to sort of be there and schmooze is sort of part of it, to talk to the CEOs, to really tell them 5 or 6 times how grateful you are to be there. It's like part of the experience.
Part of the gig, yeah.
Yeah, you go to the wine mixer afterwards and you talk to people and they tell you about their favorite comedian and it's not you. And so the day I was really hoping on the trip to see Ram Dass, but I wasn't going to plan ahead. So on the plane, when I landed, I texted Dasima, who was his caretaker and friend. And I just said, hey, I'm in Maui, or I'm on Maui, on the off chance the big guy has any time today or tomorrow. Because I think I flew in, it was such a important show. I flew in a day early or something. So I had a free day, and they were like, you can come by this afternoon. And I went, and it was mostly hanging out with Govinda and Lakshman, all these Hindu names.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's really Steve and Keith, but they had been renamed because they were reborn in the spirit. So anyway, and I love those guys, and I love seeing Dasi, and I'm just hanging out there, and it just immediately brought me back. Just like Napili Kai, the resort, you and I could go there when it's not a retreat, and it would still be a special place.
Yep.
So there I was at Ram Dass's house. And, medically speaking, he was always, his availability was always up in the air. Like, am I even going to see him? Am I going to see him and he's going to be resting, like, sort of like not up for the tits and teeth tour. So I was sitting in the living room, and they rolled him out, and he sat next to me. And I want to point out that I do have a skeptic brain, meaning I know I said that I can touch a bottle of LSD and feel like I'm tripping, but that's not always true. Just as likely, you can do a profound thing, and you're like, what's wrong with me? Why didn't I?
Yeah, why didn't I break through? Or
Yeah. I mean, I've had that with drugs. I've taken LSD, and I'm like, what am I doing here? I'm having this trip where I'm just thinking about what I have to do and like my work. I'm like, this sucks. I hate this. If that ever happens to anybody, the Flaming Lips, Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots is the perfect album.
great album.
Oh my God. It is an LSD trip.
Yeah.
I never even really liked that album that much, but when you listen to it tripping, you're like, I fucking get it. It really turned that trip around for me. And that was only 35 micrograms. It was less than half a dose, but I was still really tripping. Anyway, he sits next to me, and he's silhouetted. The sun is setting behind him, so I can't even see him. And he's sitting next to me the way I was seated, meaning we weren't facing each other. And he just started saying, it's funny, this is my favorite Richard Rohr book. It's called Just This. And Ram Dass was very meek and quiet, and in this moment, and he just started saying, almost under his breath, we had a little chat, and then he just started saying, just this moment, just this moment, just this moment, just this moment. And then bigger pauses between the two. Just this moment, and a pause, just this moment. And like, his ability to conjure up the feeling of Maharaji, his guru, the feeling of electric, vivid, juicy, sexy, colorful nowness was a finely tuned, I guess you could say a Shakti, like a power. He had devoted, he's a bhakti, so it's all about devotion. He had devoted himself so fully to Maharaji that it really, in my 3 times seeing him, this being one of them, privately, he really could turn it on. And Govinda and some of the other caretakers would tell me that is something he does. And he doesn't just do it. I think Govinda said that to me. He was like, he doesn't just do that for us, like at the dinner table. He doesn't just go like, let me turn on the lights. Maybe he did sometimes, I don't know. But he was stressing to me, Ram Dass knows what he's doing, and he's opening the door for you. And to the degree to which I'm able to go into the banquet, I am allowed into the banquet. At that point, it's up to me. But he could do it. And that's why fuck. Because as much as I can say he's everywhere, and he's in this conversation. I'm looking at his picture on the wall right now. And he's as here as he's ever been. And that's 100% real. The thing that my ego will miss, and it's my ego speaking when I say fuck, is that there was a guy who, just like I could open you a can of soda, he could open up, I don't want to say a portal, I don't want to make it too fancy schmancy, but he could open up a channel and he could take me by the hand, he'd tow me. I'd be in the special water wheelchair and he'd tow me to the shore where Maharaji was. And that's what I miss. Both times I did my private retreat, on the last session, he would do it. And that's a phenomenon. That's a real miracle. If both times, and other people, hundreds of people have done it, and I'm sure they would agree with me, on the last day is when, if it's a stadium, he turns on all the lights in the stadium. And both times he would say, Maharaji is here. And dude, if I didn't look for him, like with my eyes, because I was like, this guy is a bridge to something very powerful. I can feel him saying, don't be silly. You are the bridge. You're made of the bridge. Like I said to you earlier. So Michael Gungor has a podcast called, I think it's called Loving This. And he has an episode on enlightenment. And that's where I got that idea that I love, which is you are made of enlightenment. In my book, which has a lot of these ideas, it's called Comedy, Sex, God. I really wish I had called it Comedy and Sex and God. I really do. It's
you are a comedy, sex, God, though, Pete. You are.
I don't know.
But you've never heard that one before?
No. I actually didn't mind because it was always the first question, and then I could take the interview wherever I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
So when I did like the morning shows or whatever, instead of it being like, I don't know what they're going to say, I'm like, I know what you're going to say, and then I'll go here. Anyway, in the book I say, and you can try this if it gives you any comfort, Jack is not enlightened, but I am. So I would say Pete is not enlightened, but I am. Meaning the thing that's noticing that Pete is not quite there is enlightenment itself. The flashlight that we shine on reality, and we shine on our own thoughts and our own feelings so we can notice it, that is the light of enlightenment. And the experience of enlightenment, as I understand it symbolically, is the flashlight turns and shines on itself, which I have to imagine is as difficult as getting an actual flashlight to turn and shine on itself, or a knife to cut itself, which is why people like Ram Dass are so valuable, is because they're clean mirrors. So you shine your light on it, and what's bouncing back is that light coming from them, coming from you. It's just a process of mirroring. And that's what I miss.
Yeah.
But I'm doing it with you right now.
Pete, I was just about to say, you took me there, man. You took me there. You took me to the place.
But that's what I'm saying. This is just like that feeling of being with Ram Dass. So it's as close as the air on your skin. But I'm so glad you asked me to do this, because I think Rami D was the same way, or I can't know. But I'm one of those people that talking about the thing you can't talk about, helps me get to the place you can't talk about. And
Absolutely.
What a fun little hack.
Yeah.
What a fun little amendment to the law.
Yeah. Pete, thank you so much. I am going to have a really good day now, man. You've you've set the tone.
I'm having a really great night.
Yeah, fantastic. I miss you. I miss SLV, Sweet Lady Val. I would love to meet Leela one day. And man, hopefully in a year or two, when all this shit settles down, we can We can chill on the beautiful beach of Maui or something, man. I
Oh,
mean, I'd be
dear.
so keen to get back to the States as soon as all this shit's blown over, man. Like I had the best time when I was over in LA and just checking out all the beautiful nature. So, when things change, I'll be back. I'll be back for sure.
wait.
And I hope I can get a day or two with you guys. But
That's a guarantee. Remember when we went to the Four Seasons? We were such
tag along, Jack.
No, you were so special. I think I even said to you, I was like, we've been here enough times. It's under 5 times, 4 or 5 times or something like that. But I was like, we've been here enough times that now your being here is really enhancing it for me because I'll remember it.
Oh,
so
great.
I'm the kind of guy that I'm like, I need some novelty, and there you were. And now Val and I think have been back since then, and we always remember that we were like, Jack, do you want to see what it's like? Not that you couldn't do it on your own. I'm not saying that, but I'm like, do you want to experience with us like a fucking swank hotel?
Dude, I'm so poor. I didn't even know what the Four Seasons was. I just turned up and like, whoa, what is this palace?
That's what it's like to be a parent now. My daughter doesn't know what ice cream is, and that's what joy is.
Yeah.
And that's what the universe is. The universe is like, do you want to see what it's like to be a painter? This thing has no idea. And then it watches with delight as you experience that. And sorry to end with one more Alan Watts thing. He's like, when your joy and your wonder atrophies and runs out, you die and you're replaced with something, a new person that will have a renewed appreciation for the miracle because you got stiff and you ran out. So there it is. Let's not get stiff. Let's not atrophy. Let's keep painting. Let's keep our eyes open. Let's stay spacious because that's what we're here to do.
And keep making people laugh and smile, Pete.
I hope to do it one day.
I love you, brother. Thank you so much, man. And
I'm glad we finally get it.
Oh, totally. And also just a big shout out or love to everyone involved in the Rum Dust community. You guys have done a lot for my personal development, and I look forward to seeing you all again soon. And yeah, that's it.
Yep.
We did it.
We did it. Let me know when it's out and I'll tweet it.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
20 new listeners.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks for listening, everybody. Take it easy.